Still not on.
You are the host now. You are the host now.
The host now?
Yeah.
Everyone can see my screen? You guys can see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. We're live?
We are.
Okay. Hey, Gustavo, how are you?
Good.
Good. Hi, James. How are you?
Doing great.
Good, good. Let's give a few minutes for us to be 5 p.m. Brazil, 4 p.m. US on the dot for us to start. Hey, Mike, how's everything?
Good, good. How are you?
Good. Hello, Marcelo.
Hey, hi, Pedro. Hi, everyone. Awesome to be here. It's always good to have our webinars.
Okay.
Great to be here.
Let's wait a few minutes. Just to hear some, let me check some attendees here. We have some people coming in advance. Can everybody listen to me? People that are already in, you can write in the chat. I have Rosani raising her hand. Can you hear me well? Can you see my screen? The audio is good? Let me see. Okay, now I can see. Okay, yes, everything can hear well. Marcelo, you get the questions, okay?
Okay.
And then I will introduce everybody.
Sure.
Almost there. What time is it for you again, James?
It's about 1.
Okay,
Nice mid-afternoon.
it's fine. So we're talking about Go Global. We have people in New Jersey, Boston, Belo Horizonte, São Carlos, and San Francisco. I think that makes the case, right?
Yeah, we're doing all right.
Yeah, good. Mike in New Jersey, Marcelo in Boston. Marcio Ferreira, everybody here well? Okay, so at 5 Brazil, we're gonna get started, okay? Let's just wait so people don't miss anything.
30 seconds.
Okay, that's fine, Gustavo.
1 minute of silence is a long time.
Yeah. Leticia, the YouTube is live, correct? Okay, so we're good to go. Guys, thank you very much. I will share my screen here. And before I get started, let me introduce the topic and why we're here. This is the third webinar of a series that we started a couple weeks ago, dedicated to all the process of international fundraising and expansion, okay? Today we come to our third webinar in that topic. Today is dedicated to hear and discuss about acceleration process, how you go and be a real international company, how you accelerate, okay? Today we have with us Mike, James, and Gustavo, okay? They're from ACE, Nanox, and Endeavor, respectively. I also have Marcelo Carrulo with me from Drummond Ventures. So I will let each of you introduce yourselves before I get started. In terms of the mechanics of the webinar, let me explain how we'll go. Feel free to ask questions, okay? Those that are in the audience can send questions on the Q&A button or the chat. Important, we have Mike for 1 hour exactly, right, Mike? Mike has a hard stop within an hour. So if you have questions, particularly to Mike, mainly to Mike, send it out. We'll take your questions as we go so that we have the opportunity to have Mike answering questions. At the end, if we need to extend a little bit, we will extend a bit, but we'll take questions as we go. I will be moderating. Marcel will be with me moderating and more focused on moderating the questions as well. So feel free to send the questions and we'll take from there, okay? Let me share a little bit about this series before we get started for the third one. As I mentioned, this is a series of 4. This is the third one. The first event was called Learn from the Founder, where we hear the founders who have done this process, who have expanded and have done some capital raising internationally. So we had these 3 awesome founders. The second event was dedicated to discuss the legal, accounting, tax aspects of these transactions. Then was myself and Michelle. We were the speakers. There was no moderator on that one. And the third event, here we are. The third event to discuss how you accelerate and build and grow your startup in the US, okay? Our guests, I will let them introduce themselves. I will start with Mike, and then I'll move to Gustavo and James, and then I'll have Marcelo Carrulo introducing himself and Drummond Ventures as well. Mike, feel free. You're the first.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Ajnsztajn, if you wonder how.
Thanks, because I can't pronounce that.
Polish spelling for Einstein. I am the founder of ACE. ACE is a multi-stage investor in Brazil. We invest in very early stage where we also accelerate companies, and we move to a little further upscale, investing in companies that already have traction and that already have a product market fit. So we have like I would say a different approach where we accelerate and invest in companies. We've been doing this for about 8 years. We have invested in 160 companies so far. We have exited 17. We made a lot of entrepreneurs very happy. And now the part of the acceleration process, we decided to go totally digital. So today we invest like a venture capitalist, but we also accelerate companies in our platform, which I'm going to show you in a few seconds. The platform is based on everything that we learned for the last 8 years, and we're bringing it to the ecosystem free of charge. We don't take equity. And so we don't charge for that. We're sharing the knowledge, and we want to help companies, entrepreneurs to grow. Besides accelerating, we also are a consulting business. We are today. So regarding acceleration, we are by far the largest in South America in volume and in number of exits. And in the consulting business, we've been consulting large corporations to do innovation as a startup or with startups. So there's digital transformation for large corporations, and also looking for startups, doing corporate acceleration, corporate venturing, investing, M&A, or testing startup products. So we have 2 business units. If I could share my screen with you, try to do this. I think
go ahead. I think you have launched something very new and unique, correct?
Yes. It's disabled. I don't think I can do it.
I'll have the communication department allowing you. Leticia, can you allow Mike to share the screen while I go to Gustavo and James? Mike, I go back to you, okay?
Actually, it's you, Pedro. You are the host. You
I'm
can
the host now?
allow you go to share screen. You can allow Mike to do that.
Okay.
Yes.
Make host. Mike, now you have all the power.
All right.
You're the host.
So, as I was saying, we accelerate companies online. We also have accelerated companies, I would say live, in the last 8 years. We accelerated 450 companies. We invested in 150. We already sold 17. And today, what we're doing is we're accelerating online. So if you're an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter what stage you're in. We have a little bit of information for you, and you can get in here. I'll post the link on the chat in a few minutes, but you will be able to see different blocks of acceleration, or everything that we know through the last few years, which goes from validation to product to sales and marketing and fundraising. And let's say if you are, let's go back to validation. And if you are not sure about what is your ideal customer profile, you get in and you'll see a video explaining to you what this is. And also you have PDF products, or I would say documents, to help you learn and go to the next phase. Once you reach the next phase, so if we go back to the phase that I was showing you, to go from validation to product and so on, you have to reach milestones. We will follow you online. We are accelerating you. And then once you reach every level, you get interactions with our team and eventually our mentors. We have about more than 250 mentors that are available that you can schedule online. We have information about our community, and we have more than 65 companies that are offering free or almost free products for the startups that are accelerated. It's about 1.5 million reais that you can get in perks, like hosting from AWS and other services like that. So basically, this is what we're doing now. We have in this platform, which is called Growthaholics for Startups, about 1,500, almost 1,500 startups accelerating at this point simultaneously. So it's very big. It's getting big. We launched this 3 months ago, so it grew exponentially. And so if you're interested, no equity, no attachment, nothing. We don't ask for anything. There's no equity. You don't pay for this. You learn, and eventually we invest in your company. So basically, this is what we're doing at this point. So
it's all benefits eventually, benefits. and you even invest in the company later on.
And
great, Mike.
Get invested. There you go.
Great, thank you very very much.
I think I think Pedro,
Mike, I think,
sharing, right? Or me, please.
yeah, you need to go back to my name and give me the share, give the host again. Guys, when we picture this event for acceleration, we had something in mind to show from inception to scaling up to what we call the inflection point where James and Endeavor are. And then we thought, who can we bring from our network and our portfolio to show each stage? Mike's a long time partner, very connected to us. And we immediately thought about Mike to talk about what it is to be accelerating, right? It's on an earlier stage. And then we thought, okay, next step, that company, it's robust enough to take the next step and let's say go global and start accelerating in the US. And then down the road, as the company grows bigger and bigger, they go to a scale up stage where Endeavor comes in. So this event will talk about that growing up cycle. And then we thought about our portfolio, who is within that acceleration in the US period. We immediately thought on Nanox. We have Gustavo here from Nanox. He's been accelerated in one of the most important and one of the best accelerators in the US, if not the best, plug and play. So I'll have Gustavo talking about his experience. Gustavo, first introduce yourself, and then we'll go back, have James introduce you, and we'll go back to your experience and etc. Feel free to introduce Gustavo, yourself, and Nanox, the company.
Hi guys, good afternoon. My name is Gustavo. I am co-founder and Nanox CEO. So Nanox is, I think, the first Brazilian nanotech company. We started the company 50 years ago. So basically in the beginning, we make different kinds of nanotechnology materials like antimicrobials, coatings, some drug things. But after 2009, in the beginning, Nanox received investment from the first seed money in Brazil, Novarum. And after this, we participate with the acceleration program here in 2007, 2008. And in that time, our focus maintained in antimicrobial. So Nanox create a silver-based platform. It's a global. We have business in US since 2016, but we have business outside Brazil since 2009 because we create a different silver-based platform. We use much less silver than our competitors around the world. And we have different investments here in Brazil. We have two venture capitalists. One is from Criatec 2, is one fund from BNDES, the national bank in Brazil. And another fund is NT Agro, is a fund specifically to agriculture business. And since 2016, we opened a business in US, especially we met guys from Drummond and another guys in the Boston environment. Is a very nice and very interesting environment to make business in US, especially to biotech companies, nanotech companies. Since 2016, we started Endeavor in US. We applied our product to FDA in 2014. 16 we got FDA approval, and we create and we have a patent in the United States, in Europe since 2016, and the last investment we received here in Brazil to finish and to cover our application in US, especially because we need to get the EPA approval for antimicrobials. And since the beginning of 2019, we applied to EPA and we are in the process to EPA. And our experience in last year, 1 year ago exactly, we receive one content from Plug and Play. Plug and Play is biggest acceleration like ACE and like another I Combinator in US. And we have very 15, I don't remember now, 10 or 15 verticals, IT, new materials, food and beverage, insurance tech. And in that time, Plug and Play was searching some startups and companies around the world in two specifically verticals, food and packaging and new materials. And after, I think, 1,000 startups around the world, in August of last year, we make a pitch, 4 minutes in 4 minutes, 3 minutes of the pitch, 1 minute questions. And after this, Plug and Play and the sponsors and the companies to sponsor Plug and Play choice 15 companies. And after this, Nanox is one. And after this, we participated for 3 months with different events, with the sponsors, with in terms of the business. It's possible to pitch some sales pitch for these sponsors, like big companies in US, investors.
This is already within the acceleration process, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
And
most important, in March, April, May, within the last few months, you've been all over the media. I'm sharing my screen with a huge and very good achievement for Nanox. You have created this very unique tissue, this fabric that will, you incorporate some technology to the fabric that can pretty much kill the virus, right? It's very,
this is the last innovative deal. So after the COVID-19, we try our silver-based material from COVID-19. One university here in Brazil isolated the COVID-19, and we apply one coating in the fabric and then put some virus, some COVID-19, and after 2 minutes, we kill 99% of the COVID-19.
After 2 minutes?
2 minutes. We make one patent in the United States in June 6th, and after June 6th, in June 16, we spread the news in the media. So
congratulations. First of all, congratulations. Second, thank you very much. It's going to be very helpful to all of us, to our society.
Absolutely.
James, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Last but not least, introduce yourself. Introduce Endeavor US. Endeavor, it's very well known, but in the US, your role, please feel free.
Certainly. Hi, everybody. My name's Jamie. I'll introduce very briefly Endeavor for those of you that might be less familiar. Endeavor is a global organization that helps high growth companies all around the world to scale their economic, social, and their cultural impact. And we do that by selecting companies and entrepreneurs when they're at the right scale up phase at an inflection point, which really just means they're past product market fit, have existing traction, usually Series A or B or beyond. And they're at a point where we can inject our resources into the company to turbocharge that growth and help them amplify their impact, both their company and within the ecosystem. I think I'll dive into some of the tactical ways that we do that here in a bit. But in brief, we do that through a world-class network of business leaders and investors and other partners that work with us to connect our entrepreneurs with the right resources to help them grow on their journey. And that network really starts at the top. We have people on Endeavor's global board, like Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, and just goes down from there. So a really elite group of people that help us support our entrepreneurs. at the end of the day, what Endeavor is looking to do is build ecosystems, more so even than support individual entrepreneurs. But the way that we've found is the best way to build those ecosystems is to support what we call high impact entrepreneurs on their growth journey and help them scale into nationally or regionally, and hopefully eventually internationally successful businesses, and then turn around and convert into the platform by which that founder reinvests their success and their credibility and their financial gains into the next generation of entrepreneurs. So that's our lofty, very macroeconomic approach, but
and having seen you guys supporting some founders who have several clients that are Endeavor entrepreneurs, it's a great job. It's a great job.
Yeah,
congratulations. We'll dig deeper on the details on how to become an Endeavor entrepreneur, what you bring to the table. Let me circle back to Mike. Mike, in the audience, somebody out there who has a startup already or a little bit bigger company, but thinking to accelerate, thinking I need some help. Why look for an accelerator? What does an accelerator, most important, ACE, of course, but what does the accelerator brings in support to the company? What are the advantages? Why a company should look for one rather than not doing so?
I think there is a general misconception that if I'm big enough or if I'm good enough, I don't need an accelerator. And I think that between Endeavor, Plug and Play, ACE, and many others, we're here to prove that that's not true. So companies need accelerators for many reasons. If you're very early stage and you need to validate a product and you need to understand your product market fit, set up a team, understand funding and so on, an accelerator might be the best way to do it faster. Because to do that as you go and you're learning, it might take you longer, and you will learn by doing instead of using the knowledge, accumulated knowledge that an accelerator has and give it to you. That's why it's called accelerator.
Yeah, that's a very important definition and concept, and that because this goes hand in hand with VC funding. When you see the option to go bootstrapping, that's what we call bootstrapping, is go with your own money, okay, not raising money. Well, you will get there eventually, but perhaps much slower than accessing funds to accelerate your business. So this ecosystem, and then I'll go back to James right now about the ecosystem in general, this is built for the company to grow faster. So you bring knowledge, you bring service, you bring support, some players like the accelerators, VC, the venture capital funds and angel investors, etc., bring cash. Because for you to accelerate a project, you will need cash as well. So there is a whole ecosystem around the company and around the startups, building this high growth. Going back to you, Jamie, how do you see the US ecosystem? What does it make so unique? Why is the US, and particularly Silicon Valley, why is the US so unique to support new companies and to make them grow?
Yeah. So I think I'd start by saying that I'm not sure that there's any individual ingredient that the US has or Silicon Valley has that doesn't exist everywhere else in the world. I think Endeavor was founded on that very principle, that there are terrific entrepreneurs and talented people all over the world with great ideas. I think what maybe makes Silicon Valley in the US unique at this point in its maturity is a density of those ingredients in one place. We think about some of our core service lines as access to capital and access to talent and access to markets. And there's a density that can be unmatched, particularly in Silicon Valley. So when you think about capital, it's such a high concentration of capital deployment and world-class experienced investors at each stage of financing too, from seed to growth financing to private equity, all happening in one place. talent, there's elite universities, but there's smart people all over the world. But you have global talent in one place, and then because of all of the other global companies that have been incubated and grown here and been successful, you have a very qualified group of a large talent pool of people that are experienced in each stage of growth to pull into your team. And then, access to markets that can vary a little bit depending on your business model and who your audience is. But a lot of those global companies and partners and a lot of those channels that you're going to be looking for to reach customers may very well be founded and based in the US or have a strong presence here. So I think at the end of the day, it's a concentration. I think that
it's a hub, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can make arguments about some of the negatives that come along with that in terms of just the competition and cost. Because when you are in Silicon Valley, the fact that Facebook and Google are here, it's going to drive up the cost of talent a lot, and you're going to be competing for more resources with a much larger group of companies, which is why I think you see even more companies being founded in smaller ecosystems around the US. But I think that overall, it's that density that really is why you see so many success.
Just to give an example of what you're saying and linking to our very first webinar. On the very first webinar of this series, we had 3 founders, one of which is an Endeavor entrepreneur, you know very well, Guilherme.
2 of which.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Geraldo as well. And Guilherme founded the company in Silicon Valley, was able to raise money in Silicon Valley. And then he soon realized that there was some disadvantages of being there, particularly cost, right? And for everything, rent is very
my rent can attest to that one.
Yeah, your personal example on that. And then how competitive the market is for you to retain talent. So you have a great guy, all of a sudden he will leave to go to Google, make thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
So Worthix moved the operation to Georgia. Now the company has the operational offices in Georgia. It keeps an office in San Francisco, and then they do have some people, but in connections. So California remains as a hub for investors and etc. But people do realize that there are some advantages on that type of hub. And then you need to realize what you can take from it and how you can, escape from the downside.
Yeah, spot on. It's a balance of, there's definitely advantages to being a big fish in a smaller pond because you can be the big brand that attracts, have a monopoly on the talent. So definitely some calculus based on exactly what your business's needs are on where you're going to be, but that density is very helpful.
Sure. Gustavo, going back to that line of thought we had before, and I mentioned, so somebody started in Brazil, a company started to grow, went to an accelerator, got all the services and the know-how and the cash, of course. And then that company is in a stage where we'll take the next step and say, I will try to go abroad. And then I will choose an accelerator. Tell us your experience on doing that. Why plug and play? Why? Well, first of all, why the US? And then why plug and play? Tell the audience about your experience as an entrepreneur on doing that acceleration in the US.
So Mike did one comment very interesting because I agree. Depends on the stage. We need different acceleration process. So in that stage last year, Nanox had business around the world. We had distributor in Mexico, Argentina, in Asia, but we chose US because it's the biggest market for many things, but for us too. And we are starting business connections. We work with some business development here in US, but we need to start business and connection with US companies. So in the plug and play acceleration program, because the corporate companies with work together, plug and play, did some demands, and the most important brands are the US and global companies stay in the plug and play, like PepsiCo, Toyobo, Dow, DuPont. This program, the acceleration program, especially the plug and play, but I think the ACE and then another is the same. We can connect and do business with global companies, US companies, but especially the Silicon Valley area is a US area, but the Silicon Valley area is a global. It's possible to make business with companies from Japan, from Germany in Silicon Valley. This environment is very important to the plug and play acceleration, because we have business
I will have a question right there for Jamie down the road, like a global platform, but share your experience. How is the US a global platform?
Sorry, for me?
No. For Gustavo. Sorry for interrupting Gustavo, because
No.
I will ask you that exact question down the road.
Yeah.
But I want to hear from Gustavo, his point of view, how the US is unique as a global platform. Not only a market, but a global platform.
No, it's not only a market, because after the plug and play program, we have especially in this program, we have deal flows with corporates, and after the program, we are making business with companies in Japan, from starting in Silicon Valley, companies from Germany, companies in Brazil. We got business in US, but companies from Brazil. So US is not only a market, it's a global market, because everybody needs to stay in US or would like to make business there. So it's possible to make business with different countries, but if you stay based, especially in Silicon Valley, because everybody would like to stay in Silicon Valley. It's very expensive, but in terms of the network, in terms of to start and make some connections, for me is the best place.
Very important points. I usually tell clients and people on our networking, the US is not just a consumer market. There is an investment market. So you will meet investors as well. And there is also a global platform. You launch companies from the US and you acquire businesses all over. I'll get back to you, Jamie, on that question about the global platform, and I wanna pick your brain on that. But speaking about being global, Mike, how do you see the companies at ACE that have a global mindset? Like some companies that are in there, how do you spot a company that's scalable in a global, it's a global scale, and how you help them at ACE?
Okay, just going one step back, I was looking at the startup genome as we're speaking and catching on Jamie, and we always say Silicon Valley is a mindset. It doesn't matter if it's in Silicon Valley, it could be anywhere. Okay, and that's how the whole thing started. It started there, and people copied, and people behave. Our startups, ACE, it doesn't matter, Gustavo or whoever, behave like they have a Silicon Valley behavior, even they never even step foot there. And that's the beauty of it. Okay, so especially today with so much content available online, you are in Belo Horizonte. You have the Silicon Valley mindset.
And speaking of what Jamie said, there are good founders everywhere in the world.
Everywhere, right? So this is the most important thing. If you can replicate, and the Silicon Valley mindset has been replicated all over the world. If you look at the startup genome, once again, Silicon Valley is number one. New York ties was number two, and this is 2020, post-COVID, during COVID, right? It's very different from last year. It's very interesting. I'm looking at it. London is the third city, and then you go to Beijing, and then you have Boston and Tel Aviv in fifth. By the way, we have Benny Rubenstein.
Yeah, I saw the message.
Good to hear from you, right? So we have people in Tel Aviv watching us now. So this is great, right? This is fantastic. So just closing that, and I agree with what Gustavo was saying. From there, or from London, Tel Aviv, or Paris, that was like the fourth or fifth and went down a little bit this year because of what's going on with COVID, people do the same kind of business and interact with everyone in the world because of what's going on in Silicon Valley. Of course, there's more capital in Silicon Valley, more maturity, more deployment, but at the end of the day, I think the mindset's the same. What we'd say at ACE is, before you want to go global, you need to nail local. And not Brazil, not Latam, local. If you're in São Paulo, you need to nail São Paulo. Make sure you nail what you're doing there in a small scale, then replicate, and then think about going global or going to the US. So that's the most important thing. And we several times said to startups, bad timing. You barely know your market in Brazil. How are you going to adventure overseas? It's starting from scratch.
Marcelo, who is here with us, works at Drummond Ventures on what we call venture building concept and definition. He works very well with these people doing the companies that will validate the product, will scale up in a concept of venture building. We've been talking about this. Marcelo, how do you see this? Sorry, I'll bring the moderator to speak, but he's a specialist in the topic as well. How do you see this? Like on a venture building, how those companies build from local to global?
Well, first of all, it's such a pleasure to be around with those guys. So it's time to learn a lot from.
It's hard because
yeah, it's complicated to try to add some value behind all of these guys. But anyway, it's quite interesting. You see that you have all of kind of programs around the world. You have acceleration programs, venture builder programs, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a real business on your hands, you have nothing. You try to do the best you can do. You try to help the psychological side of every entrepreneur. You guys know what I'm talking about. But as Nanox, if they don't have this mask or these technologies in nanotechnology on their hands, and you can create patents, you can create real value. Acceleration is nothing, venture builder is nothing, etc., etc. So here we talk about real business, and we see all of our audience here. We have a lot of entrepreneurs watching us right now, try to understand, okay, how can I achieve this and that? How can I become a new Nanox? How can I approach Jamie and Mike and have some money, have some good mentoring, have some good thoughts, and can scale my company? Well, the first thing is, do you have or you don't have a business on your hand? And that's essential. I see some comments from here. One is directed to Jamie from Leila Vallis. She was our client. Actually, her company was our client, but she's still our client. And she got a real business on her hand. And without that, no matter what endeavor can try to help her, at the end of the day, it's going to be an empty relationship, right? So that's a perfect fit, a perfect match between the both sides.
Let me throw that to Jamie, but let me read, because some people might not have known. We have Leila here. Leila is a great client, great endeavor entrepreneur. She's great. Jamie, it couldn't get any better. Look at this sentence. Leila, I quote, "I'm definitely the living proof of how much impact endeavor can have on an entrepreneur's life and company. Love it with all my heart." With that, Jamie, I throw this question to you. How does endeavor bring value to the table? Well, yeah. Leila could speak for yourself, but we don't have her.
Yeah, we need to bring Leila in here.
Now. But tell you. Thanks, Leila. Thanks again. She's always with us on the webinars.
Yeah, Leila, thank you. And I'm happy to hear that. So a couple good points brought in, but the way that Endeavor helps companies, it's a very customized high touch approach, which I think is the most fun element of it. A little bit more context on my role within the whole Endeavor world is I manage the global enterprise software portfolio. So it's a completely industry agnostic approach, and we have vertical teams for each vertical rather. So I'm everything enterprise software, and a very simplified description of how I interact. I'm fully founder facing. Is I talk to the founders about what their top of mind challenge is today and how Endeavor can help. And that a lot of the times is access to capital, helping companies strategize things, fundraising and dilution, and subsequent funding rounds, and then getting ready for investor introductions and then building roadshows for them through our network. Often it's access to markets, given Endeavor's global footprint and helping them expand around the world. Endeavor's in 37 markets today. We have a couple of interesting talent programs, but at the end of the day, it's really about a elite group of business leaders from markets all around the world who can help with whatever strategic challenge an entrepreneur is facing. Depending on the market that a founder is coming from, it can be a little bit bare. People who have tackled the problems that they are facing at their stage of growth, especially the farther along you go. So we can connect those across different borders, and whether it's about a specific sales challenge or product challenge or org structure, or simply the loneliness of being a founder and that journey and not having anybody to share it with, Endeavor really helps on all of those. And Mike, to your point, sometimes it's about going global or not going global, and giving hard feedback and really being entrepreneur first about exactly where they are and what the right next steps are and designing those together.
Jamie, next week we'll be talking with the VCs, the venture capitalists, on what they look for when they are investing. And Endeavor does help in building and going on a roadshow and helping the founder on strategies and connections for fundraising, correct?
Yeah, quite a lot of that actually.
Okay, sounds good. Let me go back to Gustavo. Gustavo, how do you see the importance of being scalable in a global environment? When you go into Nanox, when you discuss with your partners, being global in a global scale, is it something important for you guys? Is it fundamental? How you're dealing with that idea?
Yes, for us it's fundamental because especially in the antimicrobials and the nanotech market, Brazil is smallest than many countries around the world. So for us, to be global is fundamental. So, and after COVID-19, much more, because much more companies and people are very concerned about bacteria, fungus, and virus so around the world. And for us to be global is a fundamental. And US is important not only to be a big market, but is a big global platform to make business around the world.
Let me take that idea and ask Mike. I will combine. There's a question here, but Mike, my question to you is: how are the Brazilian companies prepared to go abroad? Okay, how they can leverage on the advantage they have by being in Brazil, and then I will combine with a question from Sergio Costa from Strings CEO. Is it common to startups which succeeded in their original market to neglect or refuse support when trying to land in another market? In other words, I think his question goes more in the line, okay, Mike, we have advantages. What are those? And how those advantages can sometimes harm the expansion when people think they are enough to succeed abroad?
I think that I was writing down, and it's like a few items that we suggest the entrepreneurs to think about when they go international. So first of all, localize, don't translate. Okay, if you think that using Google Translate to fix your website or your product is going to do it, not going to do it.
Nope.
Okay.
The agreements you have are not going to do it. Speaking from a legal standpoint as a lawyer, don't translate your agreement. Get another one.
Communication doesn't. So you need to localize. If it's in English or if it's in Arabic, it doesn't matter. You need to localize. Second, you need to hire someone local to do that and make him into your mini CEO. Sometimes you don't need to go overseas. I don't know if Gustavo went to Plug and Play, so he moved. I'm not even sure if he moved, but some people don't even need to move. You can operate from your local original country or state, city, and have someone running the show for you overseas. And it should be a local guy. Third, take a look at the regulations. The way we invoice in Brazil, as stupid as that, is totally different from how you invoice in the US.
Way more complicated in Brazil.
There's nothing
and that blew me away when I was learning about how complicated it is.
There's nothing
for you guys.
Invoicing and accounting.
I would give up. I would give up halfway. If you went all the way through, you're a hero.
But Gustavo now talked about the FDA, but now he has the EPA, and I'm sure he had no idea how many A's he had to encounter and will encounter. A for administration, right? And maybe the surprise will come, you're gonna have to face another one, right? I don't even know if you're 510K, you can tell us if you're 510K FDA or not, but depending on the complication of his product, he will have more and more regulation on his head, right? And then finally, don't choose the market because it suits you, right? It has to suit you, not because it's big, right? So you can go to a gigantic market like the US, but maybe you could go somewhere else will be a little more suitable for what you do and what your product does. And then coming back to that, why you go to Silicon Valley or why, for instance, you go to New York, I'm right here. And New York is the best place to test an app, B2C solution like Airbnb and Uber, because you have a high concentration of different people under one very small geographical area. And you have people from Africa, from Asia, from Latin America. They all have the same kind of problem, but they live under the same area. It's like 8 million people cramped together. So when they test, you talk to people from all over the world under one situation. And many of these apps that became unicorns that we know started here. I mean, I'm in New Jersey, but New York is right here 20 minutes away, because it's a very good place to test your product. You don't even need to be here to start with. And then eventually you then, as I said, localize. So I think that coming back to the question, if you think you don't need help because you nailed it, think again.
Yeah, good point. Very good point. Speaking about the market, we serve hundreds of clients in different industries. When they go to the US, they think, oh, I will sell to the entire East Coast. I said, stop. Just Florida will do the job. Just New York. Don't try to capture everything at once, okay? You'll be encountering a different culture, different products. You need to adapt your product and so forth. Let me go to Gustavo before I go to James. And we are running 12 more minutes before we have to lose Mike. Mike has a very short stop. Gustavo, I will ask you to be brief so I can go back to Mike for a final question after Jamie. Gustavo, if somebody in the audience wants to repeat your success in terms of applying to Accelerator in the US and expand to the US, what are the do's and don'ts? What can you provide in terms of advice? What to do and what not to do?
Pedro, if you allow me, just to add one short question in your question to Gustavo, because we know that Gustavo, in the very first beginning, he got money from Createch, which is an early stage fund. So he had to pitch to Createch and he got the money. So there is a question here from the audience too, from Rodrigo Torres. Thank you, Rodrigo, for your question. It's all about which are the steps to reach out someone to hear your pitch and consequently try to get this first investment. So both questions, how you can get the first check and how you have your pros and cons when you go to Accelerator in the US. Sorry, Pedro, just to bigger question, okay? Thank you.
Sure. You're mute. Yeah, now it's good.
we raised money from Createch in 2016 is special to apply to the EPA, because in that time we the regulation process in US and need to apply to another regulations after the FDA in US. I think there are some the is good because it's possible to work with global companies around the world.
You're cutting off a little bit. Just for me, or I think Mike can hear you as well. It's cutting off.
No problem.
Hazards of the Zoom life. Just a little bit of lag.
But go ahead, Gustavo. Let's see if we can capture now.
Program is good because it's possible to make business with
Yeah, we are missing
your stage.
He's just telling the chemistry behind the new technology, so he's disclosing, but we can't hear him. So
Maybe the AirPods, the battery is going.
Yeah. No, we can't hear you. Let me go to Jamie while you try to fix. Jamie, same question to you. Somebody in the audience who wants to be an Endeavor entrepreneur, wants to reach out to you and to Endeavor Brazil, or either way, one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
What should that person do? What are the steps to take?
Sure. Well, I'm going to make it really easy. I'm going to be sharing my email and information for our team down in Brazil with Pedro and Marcelo for any follow-up. But I'll give you a little bit of insight into what the selection process looks like. So our team in Brazil is incredible, and they run a scale-up program to help accelerate companies on their way to becoming Endeavor entrepreneurs until they're at that right scale-up moment. But the selection process for an Endeavor entrepreneur starts locally in Brazil, and there's a few different reviews and selection panels, and they also help get you in touch with the Brazilian ecosystem and all of the Endeavor network there. And then at the right moment, after multi-stage vetting process, then you go to an international selection panel along with companies from all of Endeavor's markets around the globe, where a global panel would review you and essentially help us decide, along with delivering feedback, whether the company is ready to be an Endeavor company, an Endeavor entrepreneur. So it can be long, but a lot of fun and a lot of value along the way. And I'll give you some contact information to learn more after this.
Please do, and we're happy to share with the audience. So guys, we have other clients that are Endeavor entrepreneurs here. I can see Flavio as well. So if you want to have the feeling that Leila just shared, this is the way to go. You just got the roadmap from Jamie. Mike, I know you have to go in very, very few minutes. A very straight to the point question, also in the lines of what Jamie said. You have accelerated hundreds of companies, invested in other hundreds, done the exit in several others, dozens and dozens. You have made several founders and investors very happy. And the market in general, you created value, you created wealth, you created products, services. How does it get started? Like, what's your main advice for someone now that's looking to accelerate and say, I need to take my company to a different stage? What should that person be looking for? What's the trigger point and the trigger event that person should be looking at?
So you mean when this company is already in place, or
in place?
An idea, or the idea
in place. In place.
Moving.
We have yep.
You already have traction.
You do.
This way. So
you do.
Well, I think the basic answer is execution. Okay, but you need to place yourself, well, if you want to look into the future, what I always tell the entrepreneurs is, besides the execution and making sure that you go into the product market fit, you need to validate every step. So even if you validate your idea in the beginning, now you need to make sure that you validate the product market fit and you don't have it wrong. And once you have it right, you start the exponential growth. But if I can tell you a little secret, funding, right? There's two ways a startup can go: the early exit or the VC route. VC route is, okay, I'm looking to be a unicorn, or I need a lot of cash to make things happen, like nanotechnology, for instance. And it's going to take the series, like I'm going from series C to A, B, C, D, eventually sell the company, IPO and M&A. And this is a long journey. The other one is, maybe I can exit my company in a couple of years and, you know, make everybody happy because I'm not VC material, or I can make it faster. So you need to, there's this, I think this is the turning point, and we talk a lot about this with the startups. You need
I wanna,
where you're going.
I wanna take that sentence from you. We talk a lot about that with the startups.
Yes.
Because one idea that's fundamental that came from Jamie and we discussed before is how lonely it is to be the founder. You are a leader in a process that it can be very lonely. It's very important to have somebody to share, somebody to talk to, and this is a support that these players can bring to you, right? Mike, at ACE, you talk a lot with the startups.
That's what we do all the time. So we have companies that we follow very closely. We're board members, and we're here for the long term. It's a very long relationship, and we talk several times, I would say sometimes a day, depending on what they need. Not only me, so I have a bunch of companies that I follow, but my other partners at ACE, everybody has their own portfolio, and we share experiences, and we bring people to talk, and we bring you so many times. And we have many of our startups that are Endeavor in Brazil, right? Scale up. So we help them to navigate and to go to the next level. So we're here. I think it's very important for a founder to share, right? And to have some kind of mentor or mentoring. In this case, it's the accelerator, and we stayed to the long term. All of our exits were M&A. We don't do secondary. We go all the way. So we help the process all the way, and we talk from, you know, things are going on. COVID now, we're talking to the startups like so much more. It's incredible. It's like we're very busy, and it's just to share. It's very lonely, as you said. It's extremely lonely. So I would say that if you're a startup, don't be afraid to share. Don't be afraid that people are not here to copy your ideas. This is not our business. This is not the investor business, right? We're here to help and eventually to invest. You will do better than any investor, no matter what. So just take your megaphone and go out there and, you know, spread the word.
Yeah.
And I always tell the startups, the best day to talk to investors is Friday. Friday afternoon before going to the beach, you know, a little talk with your investor, another investor that will be your investor. He's relaxed. And now on Zoom, you can even have a drink. So I always say, Friday afternoon, stop the day to day and go talk to people. And it helps a lot.
Heard it here first. Hot tip.
And Mike, before you go, we have two questions, because you mentioned about being local, applying local. You know, someone asking if it's going to be a good idea if you decide to buy some local company to accelerate this scalability of the company. It's one question. And another one, it's all about Georgia. We know that Georgia is a fintech hub nowadays in US, but what about Georgia in terms of to launch a B2C app, not in Boston or California or New York? So two questions for you before you go.
Okay. Buying a company, why not? If you can, if there's fits, if you have the means, if you understand the cost, and especially you need to understand how hard will it be to integrate the two cultures? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm considering you can do it.
Yeah. Actually, acquisition is quite fine. The merge is quite complicated, right?
Right. Even acquiring.
Yeah.
Acquiring is difficult because you acquire the technology, but you acquire the people too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The culture, mindset, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
And be very clear on which one, or if it's both, whether
Exactly.
the IP or if it's the people.
Yep.
It's harder than people realize.
Okay. So we saw a company that we almost sold a company, and then when the acquirer understood that the company had 50 people, they said, we don't want to do this. The technology is great. It will add a lot of value to our business, but we don't want to do this. We don't have time to integrate 50 people. But look, high management over here will take care of the rest of the team. And they said no. So that's, I would say, crucial. You need to make sure that you can integrate all the people.
Great.
But yes, I think it's a good way to expand. I love buying startups that buy other startups is great.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a shortcut, but you need to understand the challenges. And Georgia.
Georgia.
Georgia, yeah, I would say Georgia is not as eclectic and does not translate, the geographical idiosyncrasy of what's going on, like in New York or Boston or California is not, maybe San Francisco is not the best example. Okay. Mm-hmm. I would maybe, I don't know if it's the best place to launch like a B2C product. It's very, especially Silicon Valley is very monochromatic, it's like one color. So I don't know about that, but so I maybe Georgia, fintech, but if you want to launch the product that you want to test with different kinds of people, I'm not sure if that's the best place. Again, you don't need to be there, right?
Yeah.
You can launch geographically, but you don't need to locally be there.
Right, back to you, Pedro.
Okay.
We have
Thanks,
two more
Marcelo.
questions if you want. So we have a big one for you, Pedro. You heard a very interesting statement about the investor search, blah, blah, blah. So in Brazil, investor angels, you have less meetings, you have more meetings in US. So what about that to all panelists?
Let me just check with Mike about his time.
Mm-hmm.
I know you have you have a meeting right now. You tell us, Mike, if you wish to go, we do know. If you want to stay a little bit more. If you are leaving, let me know, and we want to thank you and leave your contact information to everyone, okay?
Yeah, I'm reading the question, and it's just a final story before I leave. Yes, I mean, Francisco Gomez, yeah, you're right. So the funny story is here in New York, we decided with the founder that we were selling a company. I organized a road show with 3 possible companies that could buy the startup in Brazil. And we sold the company in 4 days. We got multiple offers. So we had a meeting in the morning with one acquirer. We jumped to the afternoon and we said, we just talked to this guy. The second guy said, wait a minute. At night, we talked to another guy. And the guy in the night said, you come back in the morning. And then we had, in 4 days, multiple meetings with the 3 acquirers, possible people that wanted to buy. They all knew what was going on. I did it on purpose. Okay. And at the end of the day, we got the offer. In 4 days, we got a deal. Nice. Honestly, in Brazil, you guys tell me, how long would it take? Okay.
You would be discussing the deal by now, right?
Yeah, it's still talking about, right? Yeah. That's and maybe Jamie can expand a little more about the mindset, but that's the big difference. In Brazil, people take their time, and why? The ecosystem is very small. Everybody knows each other. And if you do this kind of hype that I just talked about, everybody's going to badmouth you. I always tell the startups, don't do auction. Okay, don't try to get a better deal in Brazil, this guy, that guy. No, because they talk, look, I just talked to this company, this one's mine. Okay, that's what's going on in the background. In the US, you have a VC that is interested in your company, and eventually the other one wants it too, and there's a fight, and it's real competition. in Brazil, it's a little different. We're getting there, but we're still behind. So I think the speed, unfortunately, we don't have the speed that happens here. And this is great. This is what makes a big difference in the US if we compare with Brazil. Right. And
yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think, I mean, Mike, that's spot on. And I think you were bringing up a point a little bit earlier that I was going to touch on, kind of about how like the Silicon Valley state of mind, but where the tactical advantage shifts is really on how built out the ecosystem is here. Like when you talk about building ecosystems and how Silicon Valley came to be with groups like the PayPal Mafia and companies like Oracle and Cisco and HP, and then like modern day, it's really like the Facebooks and the Googles. The story of that are founders and teams that scaled to global stature and were on that journey together. And then they reinvested in the next generation of entrepreneurs as second founders or as board members and mentors and investors themselves. And what happens because of that is in the US, we're maybe in the, 8th generation of that journey. So when you're building a global company and looking for investors, there's a much larger pool of people with that same experience to pick from. Whereas in Brazil, it's happening. It's just an earlier generation, second or third generation. So it makes that investment hard to come by, and some of those access to the people a little bit more narrow. And yeah, at the investment stage, it means that companies not only from Brazil, but a lot of Endeavor's markets and markets around the world, companies have capital efficiency built into their DNA probably a little bit easier and a little bit earlier, because capital is harder to come by and you get a lot messier cap tables. Like you'll hear Endeavor CEO Linda Rotenberg say that the day that we don't have any messy cap tables coming into Endeavor selection panels is the day that we no longer need Endeavor, because it's just always going to be a problem. So yeah, that unfortunately is a reality.
Okay, so.
Okay, Mike, I know you have to go. Thank you very much. You said the Brazilian environment is getting there, and you are a very, very important player on that. We all thank you for all your efforts at ACE. You are part of that ecosystem trying to educate, and you do that very well. ACE is a very, very important player. Your time is very, very short. We know that every minute counts. You talk to the startups at ACE, the startups that you mentor know how valuable your time is. So thank you very, very much for every minute you've been with us. It's been a pleasure. People in the audience had the very unique experience to hear directly from you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. It was an honor and a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Gustavo, let me go back to you. The mic is good now. Let's see if you can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. So last but not least, we're running 7 more minutes after the time. Let's see if Marcelo will bring up any questions from the audience. But Gustavo, you were giving the advice on what a company in the audience should do to repeat your success in expanding to the US and being selected by an accelerator.
So in few words, the acceleration program is a very good idea, especially because we have contact with global companies, multinationals around the world. But it's a long process and a very exhaustive process. And in terms of the person and in terms of the company, we need to able to move fast and to change some things, because the same idea here is so different in US, is around the world, so it's necessary to adapt it. So, but it's a good process.
Great. Guys, before I thank Marcelo and Jamie, let me talk about the next events. Let me share my screen here again. So we spoke that this is a series of 4 webinars, and next week we'll be talking to the VCs. Jamie, you talk to the VCs all the time with the founders. Next week, we're going to have 3 very active fund investors and investment club investors. Geraldo from GAA from Miami, Rodrigo from Red Point, you know very well, and Ron Kepler from Bossa Nova. That's the next event, next Thursday, the 6th at 6 p.m. Brazil. So people in the audience, remember next week we're gonna have our events back to the normal, the regular hours, 6 p.m. Brazil, 5 p.m. Eastern. Today we had to change given Mike's appointment that he had a meeting right now. So this is the next for next week. Here are the contact information from me and Marcelo. Jamie, Gustavo, and Mike can be found on LinkedIn and the website as well. Going back to you guys, I can't thank enough. Marcelo, first you, thank you very much for your time moderating. Always a pleasure to have you doing a great job at Drummond Ventures. We now have all the websites and the LinkedIn on Ventures. Ventures is helping and co-funding many other businesses. Marcelo, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. We have a last question from someone from YouTube. It's all about what kind of mistake you can have if you are angel investor. So just let her know that we're going to answer this question on the next webinar next week, right? When you're going to have a lot of venture capitalists here with us. So stay tuned, stay with us for the next week. Then we promise to answer this question, okay?
Okay, good. Thanks, Marcelo. Gustavo, thank you very much. Congratulations, first of all, congratulations on all your history at Nanox. Congratulations on your latest achievement. Great. Good luck with the acceleration process now, and thanks for your time.
Thank you, Pedro. Thank you, Marcelo, Jim, and high-level discussion. Thank you very much.
Okay, last but not least, the man from Silicon Valley. Thank you very much, Jamie. Great sentence from Leila. I think you can take that, copy and paste, and bring to.
It needs to go on the website.
Yeah, that needs to go to the website. Goes in the hall. Put in the wall. Great. Thank you very much for supporting the founders. We are here as a service provider. We are with them on a daily basis. We see how supportive you are and how much you add value to the entire process in the company. Thank you.
Thanks for bringing me in. I love working with my Brazilian founders and team, and pleasure to be here. And Gustavo, great to meet you as well.
Okay, guys, thank you very much. I see you all next week at 5 p.m. Brazil. Sorry, 6 p.m. Brazil, 5 p.m. Eastern time, East Coast in the US, for us to finish this series to hear from the venture capitalists. Okay, we're going to talk to the VC funds about all this process. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.